Hey everyone, hope you guys are having a good night. As I was just telling the TikTok friends who are always right here, and tonight we have YouTube and Instagram. I sound like this, and I'm sorry that you have to suffer through this. I don't feel sick. I feel fine. My voice is just absolute trash, and I've been trying to get it to get better. I've been trying to do vocal rest, record videos only when I have to, not talk as much, which is killing me because that's all I ever do. Um, I've tried throat coat, I've tried nebulizers, I've tried hydrating, I've tried honey, I have tried everything. And here's what it is. But the reason that we're still doing this tonight is because this stuff is too important to not talk about. We have three things we're going to talk about. The first one is Diddy trial day 4, which I had to come on, if nothing else, to give you guys a recap on that because I promised that I would continue doing that. We also have some interesting things regarding Bryan Kohberger, and the Menendez brothers got a huge win today. So we're going to talk about all of those things in this episode. And for my TikTok friends, obviously you can stay there. Instagram, you guys can definitely stay there. You see the same thing that you see on YouTube. But for my TikTok friends, if you guys want to jump over to YouTube, you can. And if you do happen to jump over to YouTube, please make sure to hit that subscribe/follow button. Because we are trying to grow that channel. I'm really trying to get it to 50,000, and I'm at like 42.6 and change. So I'm got a still bit of ways to go, but would like to go more. So please, any help there would be amazing. And if you are tuning in for the first time on TikTok, you're seeing this on your FYP, whatever, hit that follow button as well. Same with Instagram, because if you like true crime, current events, then you should just follow my account. Diddy especially, we're going to be covering that closely. We're going to be covering Kohberger closely. I am very deep into the Menendez case. So there's a lot of things that are coming up that are really good to kind of talk about. But as always, I have to do the housekeeping items first. So as always, in TikTok, as you can't see what's on the screen, here you go. Buy this damn book, guys. I want to get rid of these, okay? Like, because I want to order more. It is cheap. You can go to TikTok shop and you can get it for my cost, hardcover or softcover. I will sign it. I will dedicate it to whoever you want me to do it to. If you are, I guess I should probably tell you what it is. If you are no contact, limited contact with a family member, or just want to teach your kids boundaries, this is the book that you need. This book helps teach your kids why you might be no contact, limited contact with a family, and teaches kids that setting boundaries, especially in the family, is a good thing and a good practice to have in life, especially when it comes to things like bodily autonomy, whatnot. Again, you can get that through the TikTok shop, through my profile, or through at justinthenickofcrime.com. Please bear in mind that if you order any other books other than that one, they will not ship out. I am out of them until these all sell and we get more. Now, that being said, next two quick things, because I really just want to jump into the updates tonight. So right here, Substack. If you like to get these things in the evening, you want to make sure you get a recap of the whole day, follow me on Substack. It's free. If you don't know what Substack is, it's basically a journalistic articles primarily. I can post videos and I do post videos, but the articles and the recaps are really a good thing to do there. And then I'm not going to talk about real victims tonight because you guys have heard me do that. And I really want to get into the Diddy stuff and the Kohberger stuff. So let's just jump right into it. Now, I'm going to warn you guys, if you're watching this on Instagram or on YouTube, TikTok, you can't see the pictures, you'd have to jump over. I didn't warn my followers with the video that there's a jump scare I'm about to show you guys. So be forewarned. There's a jump scare. You guys ready? All right, here we go. Bryan Kohberger. Yes, it's blurry. I can't help this. This is a new photo that just came out. It was released today. Well, yeah, it was released today. So here's kind of what we're talking about with this, okay? So there's been a few things about Bryan Kohberger, and I've made a couple videos about it, but let's go ahead and just talk about all of that right here. And again, we're going to talk about this for a moment, Menendez for a brief moment, and then we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what happened with Diddy. It's so much that I just saved it to last. But all right. So if you haven't heard, before I get into the picture, if you have not heard about this yet, Bryan Kohberger's pieces of his search history have been released. Now, part of it is he had searched Ted Bundy before and after the dates of the murders. Now, he was working in criminal psychology, so that doesn't necessarily mean anything that could have been part of his, whatever. What is concerning, though, is the type of adult content he was looking for. Apparently, he used keywords like forced, passed out, drugged, sleeping in the weeks surrounding the murders around in November of 2022. He also searched for sociopathic traits in college students and for some reason, just for funsies, the Britney Spears song Criminal. All right. Now, this selfie that we're talking about right here, this was taken just like 2 days before his arrest. He's seen wearing a black robe with a hood, kind of trying to resemble Ted Bundy. This photo was reportedly taken on December 28th, 2022, which again, 2 days prior to his arrest. Oh, and yeah, we talked about that already. Sorry, the Ted Bundy thing. Search for Ted Bundy. But here's what the one thing that I think was really, really creepy. Okay. Really, really creepy. They found pictures of bikini clad girls on his phone, like not underage girls, overage or legal age, college girls. And for a lot of people, you might be thinking, okay, well, he's a 20-something-year-old guy. He's likely an incel. So this is probably the best he's going to get. Well, here's where it gets weirder. They were all girls at the universities, the University in Washington and the University of Idaho, right? They were girls at that university, and several of them were either close friends with Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana, or followed them. That just came out tonight. They were connected to the victims, either as friends or followers on social media. And he had these pictures saved to his phone. The other thing that came out yesterday was there's newly released surveillance footage that shows a white Hyundai Elantra, similar to Kohberger's vehicle, circling the residences on the night of the murder. It was seen approaching and leaving the area within a 13-minute window. Now, those are the updates I had on Kohberger. Like I said, I'm going to try to go through these pretty quick to give you guys the updates on Diddy. I want to talk about this one real quick, though. This should be very, very quick. The Menendez brothers. Drop in the comments, whether you're watching this now, watching it later, drop in the comments if you think that they should be free, if you think that they should be able to go home, because they are one step closer to that after today. It's a significant update. Basically, for those of y'all who don't know the Menendez story, just real quick, Eric and Lyle Menendez have been incarcerated since 1989, over 3 decades, and it was following the murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. Recent court proceedings have brought their case back into the spotlight with potential implications for their future. And guys, I'm telling you, I am hugely invested in this one, and we're following it closely. All right. So a significant update is basically that the Los Angeles judge has scheduled resentencing hearings for May 13th. That's next week, and May 14th. And that decision follows multiple prolonged delays. The hearings will assess whether the brothers' sentences should be reduced, potentially making them eligible for parole. Now, central to the upcoming hearings is a comprehensive risk assessment conducted by the California Board of Parole. This evaluation was requested by Governor Gavin Newsom, and basically what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to categorize both Eric and Lyle as moderate risks for future violence. So what it's supposed to do basically is show how violent they would potentially be. And the factors on influencing this assessment include documented prison infractions such as unauthorized possessions of cell phones and misconduct, which that's what they had for infractions was a couple of contraband cell phones. Now, their attorney, Mark Garagos, who we're also hearing his name with Diddy's trial, emphasizes that the brothers' rehabilitation over the past 30 years, that they should be able to get out, that they show no risk. They've pursued education. They've participated in self-help programs. They've initiated on their own support groups within the prison community, things to help prisoners who have handicaps or disabilities, things to help prisoners adjust to coming into the penal system. That's what they've kind of been doing. And additionally, this is where it gets really important. There are 20 family members that are alive that are part of the Menendez family, okay, including their maternal aunt. And they have all expressed forgiveness, and every one of them, every single living family member of the Menendez family advocates for the brothers' release. Let's talk about how significant that is. Let's talk about how significant that is. The entire family, the maternal aunt, Kitty's mom, saying that they should get out, the cousins saying that they should get out. Everybody in their family is supporting this and fighting for this and advocating for this. Now, that being said, the Los Angeles district attorney feels differently. Nathan Hochman, he opposes resentencing, and he cited that the brothers have a lack of full accountability in recent prison violations. However, Judge Jessic has allowed the hearings to proceed, indicating that the prosecution's arguments did not present new evidence sufficient to halt the process. Okay? Now, again, this case has garnered renewed public interest, right? And part of this is because of media portrayals and documentaries exploring the complexities of the Menendez family dynamics. These narratives have sparked discussions about the impact of alleged abuse and the justice system's handling of such cases. And let's talk about how the cases went down. Let's talk about how the cases went down. Um, Real quick, hold on, I'm having a moment here. TikTok likes to be jerks. So TikTok gave me a little warning. So what I'm going to do real quick, guys, is I'm going to drop off this live and come immediately back, and we're going to keep talking about this, okay? I'm going to do that right now, and we're going to keep going. And anyway, so hold on one second, guys. We're going to end this. If I can end now, and we're going to go right back on. Stupid TikTok. You got to deal with them. You got to deal with them. It's terrible. Anyways, so what I was saying is that the case has got renewed public interest, and with documentaries and things like Monsters and stuff like that, we've had more discussions about the abuse. Now, let me kind of talk to you guys about how the cases went down for those of y'all who don't know. And I'm going to recommend watching the Menendez family documentary on Netflix. It was very well done in my opinion. I'm also watching Monsters right now, which I think is really good. It's the family's not happy with the portrayals of them in them, but of the brothers and in Monsters, but I found it pretty good. Let me kind of just talk to you real quick about what went down. When the first trial happened, the jury was split. Basically, they talked about allegations of SA by their father. There were people who were members of the family who testified about Jose Menendez, saying like when one of the boys was like 6 years old, his dad put him on the counter and told him to jump to him and that he would catch him. And when he went to jump, dad stepped out of the way, so the boy like just fell and basically flat on his face. And the dad said, "That's your first lesson, never trust anybody." And this was kind of the dynamic that he had with his kids. And then you have the SA allegations, which if you go back and you watch their stories in the courtroom, either they are the greatest actors you have ever seen, or it's 100% true. And based on the psychological reports and everything from that time, and things that have come out since then, and letters that have been found by the family that were written, and other things that they've testified to, I personally believe that the abuse was 100% real. The details of things are very specific, and the way they describe it is very much how an abuse victim would describe. And again, this is going back to the 80s where boys weren't abused. It was considered that they weren't abused. And you really just didn't have the ability to research how other victims kind of acted, but they check every one of the boxes for what happened. And so while what they did was wrong, murder is wrong, you shouldn't, there are other ways that you could have handled it. They were, both very young adults. There were some extenuating circumstances. So what happened is in the first trial, they split for 30 days. I think it was 30 days. They couldn't come to an agreement. So it ended up in a hung jury and a mistrial. And they had another trial, but it was right after OJ. And when they walked into the second trial, the judge said, "Look, here's your two choices, guilty or not guilty. That's it." There was no with special circumstances. And the judge specifically said, "We're not going to go with any of this battered woman bullshit." That is what he said. So they never really got a fair hand at that trial. And so this information's come out and everybody's advocating. So that's why there's been a new kind of renewed, thing with this. So anyways, but like I said, hearings are May 13th and 14th. We're watching this very closely. Personally speaking, I know there's some people in my comments who don't agree with me, and that's okay. Somebody said I thought the abuse was new from the first trial. No, Stacey, they talked about it in the first trial. In the very first trial, they talked about the abuse. And you can watch those on Netflix. Sorry, that was a great question. I want to make sure I address that. I'm watching this. I'm invested in this case. I actually get the press releases for it, so that's kind of exciting. And I'm a huge advocate for them to get a second chance at life. Now, anyways, this outcome could redefine the trajectory of their case, and this case has captivated people's attention for decades. So, again, drop in the comments what you think should happen. Should they get a new chance at life? Now let's get to what you guys really want to talk about, which is this dude, Diddy. Let's get into some deep Diddy. Okay, let's get into some deep Diddy. All right. Before we go into the details, and talk about today, there's one quick thing that I want to address. Okay. The one thing that, by the way, if you guys on TikTok don't mind, let's get this back to 10,000. Sorry to ask y'all to do that again. One thing that I get asked probably 100 times a day Why can't we watch this trial? Why could we watch Amber Heard and Johnny Depp? Why could we watch OJ? Why can't we watch this? So let me explain it. And please share this information far and wide. Tell everybody, because it is so, yeah. And I get you guys don't, and it's okay. I don't mind. I'll answer it as many times as you ask, but it's challenging because it just is. So why can we watch the Depp trial? Why can we watch OJ? Why can't we watch things like Ghislaine Maxwell or Diddy or any other federal cases, John Gotti, things like that? All right. Well, here's why. Courtrooms, federal courtrooms, ban all cameras and audio recordings. There is no live stream. There is no still photos. You don't even get to put a mic in the back row. You don't even get to have a tape recorder with you. Okay. The most you're going to get is a sketch artist, and that's what we've had coming out. All right. That is the best you get. So what's the reason? Why is that different than some of the other trials? Well, the official reason that the feds give is that they say that cameras and mics could intimidate witnesses, influence jurors, and turn trials into a circus. Basically, they don't want these moments becoming made for TV drama. But let's be real, they already are. Diddy's entire situation specifically is already a made for TV drama, right? Now, state courts, they're a completely different story. That's why you can binge watch every moment of Depp or Derek Chauvin or OJ Simpson. But federal court, like I said, you're lucky to get a courtroom sketch and a reporter's tweet. That's the best that you get. And if anybody wants to know why this is the case, it goes way back, real quick history lesson, goes way back to the 40s after the media frenzy around the Lindbergh baby, which if you guys don't know that case, we can do a video on that later. The Supreme Court got a little spooked by it, and they blamed cameras for corrupting the process, and federal courtrooms have been locked down ever since. All right. And like I said, even audio is off limits. You can't do podcasts, no audio feeds, nothing. The only thing you might get there is a typed script transcript a few days later, and sometimes you have to pay for that. So yeah, biggest trials in America, you're never going to see them live. Now, I think that should change. What do you guys think? Do you think that it should change, or do you think the system is right to keep it all in the dark? But that's why. That's why you can't watch them. So Diddy, let's just get right into it. Prosecutors introduced a brand new witness being titled as victim number 5. Now, what's interesting about victim number 5 is she is not part of the formal charges, but her testimony is being allowed to show a pattern of Diddy's alleged abuse. She's expected to testify under her real name. And that, you guys might be thinking, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it is, because so many of the accusers of Diddy, because of fear of retaliation, have gone by pseudonyms or aliases or even just initials. And she's not. The judge basically said, hey, you can be included, but you need to use your real name. Now, the judge also had to fight the defense on this. The defense did not want her to be part of this. So why would that? Why would the defense not want her to testify? Well, because even though the specific incident involving her is not part of the formal charges, prosecutors say that she helps establish the scope of quote, freak-off culture allegedly created by Diddy. Basically, it's believed that victim 5's testimony will help establish a broader pattern of behavior, which is consistent with the freak-off allegations already detailed by the other people. All right. Now, you guys have probably heard me talk about this the other day. All right. We talked about this the other day. Victim number 3 is missing. And when I say missing, it doesn't mean that she is like missing, like she's disappeared. They can't find her. She's fallen off the face of the earth. That's not what this means. What it means is she has basically gone completely off the grid. Her attorneys aren't really returning calls to the prosecutor. She has been subpoenaed, so she could potentially be held in contempt of court. That's really cool on TikTok, by the way. I had to say that. That was awesome. Anyways, they subpoenaed her. She doesn't want to do it. Now, the prosecution in the notes said that this person was on board. They wanted to testify, but apparently people close to this person, sources have said that she never wanted to testify against him. And so right now they're due for trial, Monday morning, and they can't find her. Now, the good news about that, if they have a little bit of time for her, because she was apparently not supposed to testify right away, and usually probably a couple weeks into this trial. So she apparently didn't want to testify, but we do know that she is an ex-girlfriend. That is what we know about her. We don't know who. I've seen in my comments on the short videos, people trying to guess who it is. People have said J-Lo. People have said, I forget, there's a lot of names. J-Lo's been the biggest one. And I don't think that's who it is, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out. Okay. Now let's get into Cassie. All right. So it is believed that Cassie is victim number one, and she's going to testify first. That is at least what is being said based on the information that we have coming out. Okay. All right. Let's talk about Cassie because she is a key witness. One of the biggest reasons this whole thing is happening is because of her video, the video of him beating the crap out of her. So defense laid out a plan on how they're going to handle Cassie today. Not incomplete, but enough to give us some stuff to talk about. So Diddy's team is preparing a legal defense strategy that basically is going to portray Diddy's past relationship with Cassie Ventura as, quote, mutually violent, end quote. Let me repeat that. They're going to go after Cassie, the defense team, Diddy's team, saying that not disagreeing, not saying that he wasn't violent, not saying that there wasn't abuse in that relationship, not saying that it wasn't toxic. They're agreeing with that, but they're saying that it was mutually violent, which is basically aiming to challenge her credibility as a key witness in his trial. His attorneys say that Cassie wasn't just a victim, but also an aggressor. They plan to introduce 2016 hotel footage that supposedly shows Cassie acting violently. And clearly, this is an attempt to undermine her credibility, but it's a risky move considering the public's reaction to past abuse footage, right? And this approach also seeks to counter Cassie's anticipated testimony, which details prolonged physical abuse, coerced, because don't TikTok mad at me again, and multiple instances of R during their relationship from 07 to 18. In addition to that, Mark Agnifilo stated in court, quote, I think we're probably going to refer to that as domestic violence, end quote. Basically, what that does is suggest an intention to argue that both parties engaged in abusive behavior, and the evidence they plan to introduce includes footage allegedly showing Cassie acting violently during a 2016 hotel incident to support this claim. But let me stop right there for a moment and just bring something to light for y'all, okay? There is a term, but not a great term. We should have a better term, but there's a term called reactive abuse. And reactive abuse is basically where you have pushed somebody so far that they react and they fight back. We saw it with Gabby Petito. We've seen it with multiple domestic violence cases, right? Where you finally get to a point and you attack your abuser. And I'm not saying that that's what happened. I've not seen the footage. But if I was a betting man, that's where I would probably put my money on, right? Anyways. Now, there's also a contested photo, a 2005 photo of Cassie and a friend that the defense tried to keep out, but the judge is letting it in. What the image shows is victim number one, again, presumably Cassie, smiling with a friend who will also testify. And the photo was taken back in 2005 when victim one, again, presumably Cassie, was only 19, roughly 9 to 10 months before she signed with Bad Boy Records and entered a relationship with Sean Diddy Combs, who at that time might have been Puffy or Puff Daddy. I can't remember, but around then. Now, prosecutors say that it sets context, meaning that they argue that the image showing victim one smiling with her best friend provides essential context. It shows what her life looked like prior to any abuse that began with her relationship with Diddy. Basically, what they're trying to do is give jurors a baseline for who she was when she met him. That's the goal of this photo. That's what prosecutors are trying to do. I don't know. I got the thing live visibility restriction again. I'm not going to do anything about it this time. The judge called it demonstrative, but still admitted it, even though the defense argued that it shouldn't be admitted. But the judge allowed it. Despite objections from the defense, Judge Subramanian ruled that the photograph will be shown to the jury. Bottom line. Now, the legal team did argue that the photo held low value and didn't prove anything relevant, that it was purely demonstrative and nothing more than that. And the judge agreed that the image was mostly demonstrated and stated, quote, it doesn't really establish anything, which is why he ruled it couldn't be included as part of the evidence. Now let's get into jury selection, because something happened today during jury selection that I was actually pretty shocked about. I was pretty surprised about, and I'll tell you what that is right now. But first, you had 45 jurors going into today. This was whittled down from, I've seen numbers that say as many as 600. I've seen numbers that say 150, but it doesn't matter. They've got it down to the 45. Now, originally they were supposed to have that all whittled down to the 12 jurors and 6 alternates on Wednesday, but ultimately they decided, let's give these jurors a chance to go home, make sure they really feel that they can be objective in this whole situation, and come back. And if any of them want to drop out for whatever reasons, that we can look at that point in time. And that's pretty much what happened. 2 of them dropped out. One juror emailed the court overnight asking to be excused due to personal well-being concerns. Scared to be a juror, sounds like. Another was dismissed after discovered they had an active lawsuit against the city of New York, which they failed to disclose in their interview or questionnaire. So that person was also dismissed. Now, because of all of that, we were supposed to have a final seated jury today, Friday, May 9th. We were supposed to have a jury today. We don't. You have 43 people still in the jury pool. Opening arguments start Monday. Those are still scheduled to start Monday, and they don't have a jury seated. So what they plan to do at this point is that they're going to wait until Monday to finalize this jury. Monday, May 12th. And the reason that they're doing that is they're worried about jurors having concerns about doing this over the weekend. So what they're going to do is they're going to bring people into court an hour before this starts. They feel like it shouldn't take more than an hour to do this. Right? And then they're gonna start the process. And basically part of this is to avoid restarting the entire selection process. So both legal teams and the judge agreed to finalize this panel on May 12th, pulling from the remaining 43 candidates who've made it through all rounds of questioning. Now, court's going to begin, like I said, an hour early, and that's going to allow time for that and opening statements, and both are scheduled for that day. Monday, y'all, is going to be a hugely busy day when it comes to this stuff. And then Tuesday and Wednesday is going to be very busy because we're going to have Diddy stuff and Menendez stuff coming up that day. And if I was a betting man on that, I would bet that we're going to see the judge going ahead and moving forward with the next step of resentencing, whatever that looks like from this hearing. But now let me talk to you guys about one more big thing. Somebody asked me to take this down, so we will. Let me talk about one more big thing. There's one more pretty darn good sized witness that we learned about today. And if you've been following the Diddy saga, you probably know who this person is. And that is Al B. Shore. All right. And I cannot overstate the weight of this. Okay. I cannot overstate how big of a deal his testimony is going to bring, because he's already started talking. And so we know some of what he is saying. And we know that he's probably saving bigger pieces for the courtroom. All right. So Al B. Shore, he was an R&B singer, Kim Porter's ex, and then later friend of hers after, they were together before Diddy, and then afterwards they remained friends, is claiming that Diddy is behind Kim Porter's death. He flat out said that Diddy is responsible for Kim's death, saying that there is no way she passed away that quickly from pneumonia. He also has testified that Kim warned him not to confront Diddy, not to touch him, not to talk to him. Don't do it directly because he might be killed. Al B. Shore said, quote, "She told me if I kept pushing, I'd end up dead." That is what he said. But he kept pushing. And he's also suggesting that his 2022, he was in a coma in 2022. His organs started to shut down. I believe he had to have a liver transplant. And he says that might have been caused by Diddy or people working on his behalf. That's what he believes. Now, his testimony has been entered as part of an ongoing federal investigations and could influence public perception as the trial progresses, of course. But here's what I want to say, and I've talked about this before. When you guys ask me my personal opinion on this, and again, this is not accusatory. This is my personal opinion, okay? Obviously, he has never been charged or convicted for this. I don't want to get sued by Diddy's people, all right? I want to make it very clear this is my opinion, speculation. You will not convince me that he is not responsible for the death of Tupac Shakur. But when you really start looking into it, there is a lot of bodies surrounding Sean Diddy Combs. A lot of bodies. All right. And some of those bodies, several of those bodies, he had something to gain, whether it was a financial gain, AKA Biggie Smalls, whether it's the gain of having financial gain too, Tupac Shakur. By having Pac gone, that kills a personal beef and takes out his star's biggest rival, the person who was at the time considered to be the best rapper alive. Took him out. I'm not saying that he did. I'm just telling you speculation. Now you have Kim. Now, there's a lot of people when you really kind of start looking at it. And there's a lot of people who claim that they got pneumonia working for him or being around him or things happening that were kind of strange. Like a lot, I've never heard of more people getting pneumonia than what I have heard with people allegedly who have said that when they've been around Diddy, they worked for Diddy, they all of a sudden got pneumonia. They got sick. They, people so and so died. I think one of his bodyguards passed away from that way as well. There are no murder charges in this. All right. There are no murder charges in this. He's strictly up for racketeering. And the trafficking and the trafficking to engage or transportation to engage in prostitution. That's what he's up against. I had somebody else ask a question in the comments on YouTube earlier today about what about minors? Well, here's what I'll tell you. There is no charges against minors. The challenge that we have with Diddy in this case is that there's a lot of legal things going on with it because you have this federal trial and then you have a ton of civil trials. And civil trials don't result in jail time for anybody. Okay. Now, could somebody choose to open an investigation due to information that comes out of a civil trial? Absolutely. Does that happen? Incredibly rare. Very doubtful. Because the burden of proof that you have to meet for a civil trial is different and less than the burden of truth that you would have to meet for a criminal trial and investigations. So even though there's people who were minors at the time accusing him that they were minors at the time of their abuse or their abuse, it doesn't matter for the case of this. There's no charges that way. And the feds are going after the charges that they know, that they feel confident that they can win. So you have to look at the federal very different than you look at state. When one of the conversations that we've had here, and I just want to make this very clear, and we had this with Gene. And if you didn't see my discussion I had with Gene Borello, former Bonanno family crime family enforcer, go check it out on YouTube. It's there, and he kind of helps walk you through this. But the feds don't care about putting on a bunch of tiny charges, things that they feel like whatever that you're going to have to argue. They're not going to want to argue, minors and get, maybe some statutory charges or whatever the case is and deal with that. They want the heavy hitting stuff that's going to bring large penalties, big penalties, and a lot of years and things that they feel confident that they can win. So that's what you're looking at here. And you might not be happy about that as the person watching. You might think, well, what about Justin Bieber? What about Usher? What about these young people? It doesn't matter. I'm not saying that they don't matter and anything that might have happened to them. I'm not saying that that doesn't matter. But for the sake of a federal court case, it doesn't matter. That's not what he's up on trial for. They're going on trial for what they feel they can put him away for confidently. And if they are successful, he will never be a free man for the rest of his life. If they are successful, he will never get out. But they have a heck of a legal team to contend with in defense. But at the same time, defense has a heck of a legal team in prosecution. Maureen Comey, not a joke. Very serious litigator. So nonetheless, this is going to be interesting. And I'm going to say that this is definitely a trial of the decade type thing. I think we're going to have a couple of those. And this is definitely the one that we're going to watch. This one's going to be incredibly, I hate to use the word entertaining, but it's going to, because we don't want to be entertained at the expense of somebody, but this one's going to be a very entertaining trial to watch. Anyways, that's what we have today. Hopefully next time you guys see me, my voice will not sound like this. TikTok, don't go anywhere. But for my Insta peeps, my YouTube peeps, please make sure to hit that follow button, subscribe button, notifications are on. YouTube, I'm going to try to go live, Instagram, I'll try to go live when I go live on YouTube more so you guys can have this. Make sure to follow. And if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments after this is done. I always read those, especially on YouTube, because those get actually sent to my inbox as well. So I can, even if I don't respond to all of them, I can read them. So if you guys have questions, I'll try to answer them if I can. Anyways, I will see you guys soon. Have a great rest of the weekend. And thanks for hanging out.